All right.
Woo! We're live in the Career Salon. We need some theme music. I gotta ask my husband about that. Get us some theme music for our happy hours. And we are so excited to have a happy hour this evening and just to chit chat with our lifelong friend, Giani Clarkson. Mr. Clarkson loves history.
Hey, what's going on? How's everybody?
We go way back, like black fuzzy Kango hats, right, Giani?
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I rhymed. We got the educator on the scene. So we're so excited to just not only talk about our topic, the miseducation of corporate America, which we're going to dive deep into that. But we're also just going to catch up with Giani. This is a casual Friday happy hour here at the Career Salon. I'm going to give Giani an opportunity because literally I would be reading for hours if I had to tell you all the things that Giani has done and is doing. I would have pages and pages and just scrolling. That. So I'm going to defer to him.
Don't do that.
The intro. And then I will kick us off with some hot topics, Giani. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
I'm a boring guy who has the pleasure of being friends with these two wonderful women that I met in the 4th grade. Good grief. I've now known more of my life with you than without you. And I'm so happy for that point, that I know you all and have seen just the amazing things that you have done. And then in addition to us being such great lifelong friends. So the fact of you all like inviting me to talk on you all show is really beyond humbling. And, you know, I don't want to talk about myself. Is there a ticker? I'm on LinkedIn. I do stuff.
Yes.
I'm happy. I'm having a great life.
Well, since Giani wanted to be all modest, let me tell you all, he is a educator. Everybody wants Giani to be their teacher. He's the favorite teacher. You know, if you look back on your school life, I know when I look back, I have, a favorite teacher that really impressed upon me all the wonderful things that I still remember to this day. That's a Giani Clarkson, that favorite teacher that your kid is going to have, right? And we invited him on this show because he is a history book, a walking history book. And it's amazing how much he knows. And he is one of the smartest people we know, honestly.
I appreciate it. The truth of the matter is, the dirty secret about it is that I just work hard. And that's something that I consistently pour into my son and pour into my students, and along with the teachers that I coach, is that hard work always works when talent refuses to. When you have talent, you start to fall in love with this hubris, believing that because you know the laws of the land, that you're bigger than the laws of the land. And I never want to be someone who was bigger than the laws of the land. So I take the time to consistently perfect my craft, try new things, learn new things, and learn from everybody, because I feel like that's the only way that you get better. And that's really, as a teacher, you're a public service servant and taking the time to learn more. Or be able to give your best to, I guess, the students that we service. So,
awesome. And I failed to mention that Giani is a Dillard University alumnus. So, yay! Look, he got the love. So big ups to the HBCUs in the house. all the geniuses that come out of HBCUs.
And Camille, one thing is, you forgot to mention, if you want to go more in depth about Giani's career and his history with being a teacher, you can look on. He's also featured on our first season of our podcast.
That's right.
And it was great. So go there, check him out. It has his name in the title of the podcast. So, and that's in season 1. So I just wanted to mention that just in case.
Oh yeah, he was a foundational guest of our podcast. Look at that.
Look at it.
It's all full circle. It's all full circle.
Yeah. So we wanna, we're catching up with our, childhood friend, but we want to start with some chit chat. So
Sure.
Giani is an educator that we love and respect, and he has some very ingenious opinions and things he can offer up. So we want to just briefly talk about a hot topic, COVID-19, going back, returning to school.
Yikes.
Virtual learning.
Yikes.
How can working parents and teachers build a relationship to help their children during this time, and just your thoughts on the matter and some tips that we could give parents that are listening.
So the main thing is that I'm going to highly encourage parents to not have their children return back to the school. And it's mainly because it's not safe, and there's no real plan that I believe in will make sure that scholars are safe. In addition to this, and I've said this tons of times, explain this scenario, right? Okay. So a teacher gets COVID, God forbid. This is a hypothetical situation, right? So that means that this teacher now needs to be quarantined for 14 days. Because how certain school cultures are not, we'll call it messy, and they find out that this teacher, Miss Johnson or whatever, has COVID, right? Keep watching how this goes. You have to get a sub, right? So, of course, the sub wants to know, well, where is Miss Johnson? The kids, because culture is messy. Oh, Miss Johnson got COVID. Now that substitute teacher has to sit there and look at all these kids, look at all their surroundings and go, now, which one of y'all got it? And which one of y'all gave it to Miss Johnson? And now I got to make a business decision with the rest of my life about what am I bringing into my household. It's highly unnecessary. I would not make any movement with this until there's a cure for scholars to make sure that, and teachers mainly, because just because I'm essential doesn't mean that I'm sacrificial. And we got to understand the difference between that, okay? And a lot of school cultures have decided to pull on heartstrings of teachers and say, well, I thought you cared about the kids. Yeah, but I also care about me, and I want you to care about me. So I would not go back into the classroom at all. But for parents, build out additional resources. Look at a series of really great websites, Arts Edge, Brain Pop. Look at these educational websites, Brain Quest, to build up that additional capacity so that there's no gaps in learning, because that's my biggest fear in this COVID classroom world, is the gaps in learning that will possibly take place.
And there are some working parents that have no choice. They have jobs that are very demanding and requiring a lot of them, even during this time, to come back to work. We're slowly integrating back into the office. And so some people have to send their kids somewhere. And so what are some things they should look out for? Or, what if a parent has no choice?
If you have no choice, I think that, and you have to send your kids back, good grief. I think you have to sit down and talk to your kids very, very carefully about the choices that they're going to make. 1, we have hand sanitizer. 2, your mask stays on. If you eat, it goes back on. You do not lay your mask on the table. You make sure that you're 6 feet away. There's no touching of peers. You're very careful about touching public doors. We just don't know enough information for us to feel safe in this environment. So I know that there's some parents who are going to have to make that tough decision. But if you have to, you're going to have a very uncomfortable conversation with your scholar about, hey, do not do this. Do not do this. Like, I made a joke on my Facebook page about how little Johnny, that's a kindergartner, is going to go to school with a Pokemon mask and going to come back with a Batman mask because he traded with his best friend. Like, that's a real possibility. Yeah. And we got to be sure that we're managing that correctly. And I hate the fact that the educator now has to become this healthcare provider and making sure all this is taken care of. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving your 2 cents on that. I know it's definitely a hot topic. When I look at my own Facebook timeline, I'm constantly seeing the conversations going on about that. So we just wanted to get your 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
Since you are an educator and, you know, we highly respect you in your profession, we want to just know your opinion. But let's move on to the topic at hand.
Yes.
And the topic at hand is the miseducation of corporate America. And the reason why that is the topic is because me and Camille were talking. We were really talking through the different strategies companies and organizations are coming up with to be more inclusive, to have diversity, equality, and inclusion in their corporations now, with all the murders of Black men and women, you know, just period in the street, and especially, you know, by the hands of police brutality. And so companies are saying, you know, they're putting out statements and they're saying all these different things. And me and Camille were really thinking about the root causes of why corporations don't already naturally and organically function that way.
Right.
Because, you know, it's in their statements at the end of the application, how they don't discriminate against race or gender, disability. It's all right there. Right. It's all right there. But when you get in, that statement doesn't ring true in most organizations. So hence you have organizations coming out, no, we believe Black Lives Matter and we're all about diversity and inclusion. And so we're like, what's the root cause of why this is not natural? And me and Camille were like, it's because we matriculate through school not knowing full history.
Right. So
and like those people, go ahead.
So it's like this. So if your history is mandatory for me to graduate, and my history is an elective, then you're only going to take one of these things seriously.
Right.
And that's really what it boils down to. Black history has been put into this box that we call February, and outside of February, that's it. And then we play the usual suspects. We play Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and then we stop the record and then go right back on with like everything else, like nothing happened. And that is the level of education that many of Americans have received. So therefore, when we talk about people of color, when we talk about Spanish or Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans, we don't believe that they have any real notes in the soundtrack of building America. So now these songs have gotten louder in time, like we do matter. We are part of the building blocks. We're part of the fabric of America. And these things show up. Now you have, unfortunately, parts of white America that don't understand it because, hey, I was never taught that. So since I was never taught that, I'm going to believe that it's not true. And I want to caution Black folks to understand the thing is that there's a big difference between BLM and BLMN. All right. Watch the plug here. Right. There's Black Lives Matter and there's the Black Lives Matter marketing, because there's tons of Fortune 500 companies that will tell you Black Lives Matter. But when you look at who is in charge of like their chief executives, you don't see anybody of color. No. And you rarely see women. And that is highly, highly uncomfortable. So as much as, you know, because like I said, since the unfortunate passing of George Floyd, everything that I that I may possibly touch with my dollar tells me that I'm Black and that I matter. Netflix, Hulu, everybody's telling me that. Hey, Kraft. Hey, by the way, Black Lives Matter. Welcome to McDonald's. Black Lives Matter. Can I take your order? Whoa.
Right.
When did this start? It's cute, but when? And are you sincere? Because, you know, we Black folks will side eye something in a second. Like, we'll side eye something quick. So that's who we are, right?
I mean, oh, go ahead, Carla. we're doing that twin thing, right? I think that's you talked about, you know, history and things like that, and I always wonder why. You being an educator and I always wonder why people never learn past what was given to them.
Sure.
It's like I I just don't know where that came from. It's like, okay, we didn't learn that. So I guess, I mean, I'm 40 now, so I don't have to know that. You kind of do, because it influences the way that you treat people, the empathy you have for people, your biases towards people.
Yes.
And these are people that are not educated in terms of history. It's affecting people of color in the workplace in a negative way. You get that through microaggressions, through, like I said, unconscious or conscious bias, and all of these things. So I wonder why people, don't learn to understand. I know when we are in the workplace, managers expect us to learn and to excel in our jobs and to study and to learn. That's a part of our growth as a professional. So why is it not a part of your growth as a professional to learn about the people that you manage or that you want to attract from a candidate perspective? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Giani?
So here we go. I love cartoons. And just follow this reference.
Okay.
It's going to go a little weird, but you're going to be like, at the end of it, you're going to be like, huh. Ready?
Okay, ready.
The failure to understand race relations comes in two flavors. Shaggy and Scooby or Mr. Magoo. Those are your choices. Shaggy and Scooby or Mr. Magoo. Let me explain. The one thing that I love about Scooby and Shaggy as a kid watching them is that I always believed in their heart of hearts they wanted to solve the mystery. They didn't have the best of tools, but they were consistently gathering information to solve the mystery at hand. Hey, I grew up in this box. I didn't understand. There's a robbery. Black folks are treated badly. Are they being treated badly? I'm going to analyze the situation. I'm going to walk it down. Boom, I got it. At the end of the episode, I figured out what it is. Roll credits. Happy ending. Mr. Magoo is different. Mr. Magoo is blind, and that's something he deals with. But there are people that Mr. Magoo comes in contact with that tells him, hey, bro, you're about to fall off a cliff. That's bad. Oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to do this. Oh, you're driving a car. You're on the wrong side of the road. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to do this. And everything works out for Mr. Magoo. You know why? Because in his blindness, he's perfected ignorance.
Wow.
It comes in two flavors. There's Shaggy and Scooby, and there's Mr. Magoo. And the problem is that the Mr. Magoos of the world inside of corporate America do not understand what Shaggy and Scooby are trying to explain.
Right.
Or what Black folks are trying to explain.
Right. And that's crazy to me, because how do you manage people from a point of ignorance? You manage them, you evaluate them, you say what their salary is, what their merit increase is during performance reviews, but you're managing them from a point of ignorance. So if you have a person of color, a Black person, and then you have a white person, and one person says the sky is blue on this end, and you have a person of color that says, no, I think the sky is kind of chartreuse, right? Well, it's kind of like, why couldn't you just say blue? That's what the manager is saying. Why couldn't you just say blue? Right. Well, the person of color may view things from a different perspective. That doesn't mean that he or she is wrong. It's just a different perspective. But if you're saying this person is right over here and this person is off base, that's a deficit in your management skills. So I think the onus is on managers in corporate America. They have to educate themselves past the point of what they know to adequately manage the professionals in their realm.
Yeah, I agree. Like culture, knowledge, and diversity and inclusion efforts should be included in team building efforts when you're building a team. Because how are you going to, I see pictures on websites and Instagram with people posing with their teams. We just did the room escape thing, and we're a team. Giani will be back. We just did the room escape thing, and we're such a team. And, they do these team building exercise to get to know each other better and know how to work together. And it's like, are you a team really though?
Mm-hmm.
You go home one way and experience a different perspective.
Right.
And come to work and experience different things than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have literally people on social media or in the public, telling us that our feelings and things and the things that we go through and our history is not valid. And those people work in corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that influences everything, from, like you said, from performance management to compensation. Hey, Gianni, welcome back.
Welcome back.
You know what? I told too much of a truth, and the people at Verizon said, "Chill out." That's what it was.
Chill out. That was 100% facts.
That's what it was. That's what it boiled down to. Terrible.
Well, Gianni, I was talking about how diversity and inclusion should be included in team building exercises, especially when you're building out a team. And I gave the example of how people do team building exercise and they're taking pictures, and posting them on Instagram. I had a great time with my team doing the escape room and, zip lining and things like that. We're a great jailed team. But when you get back to the office, it's like, are you really a team? Because when you go home, you experience something different. When I go home, I experience something different. Even when we come to work, we experience something different. So, we're not on the same level as far as being a team. I think when people think about being a team collectively and getting a job done, all they're thinking about is work. But when we go to work, we're not just thinking about work. I mean, we do because we do it, but we also we're whole people. And we have other things that are on our mind that doesn't necessarily make us think that, oh, okay, so we're a team now? Like, we're a team or what?
Trust me, ain't no escape the room gonna magically solve everything. And that's highly disingenuous. Whereas the push should be, I know that what I'm going to do inside of my work environment, my school community, my working community, or whatever, is consistently have those difficult conversations to get it right. See, I think what it is that everybody wants to take a Band-Aid and go, ugh, and rip it off real quick and go, all right, we're done. Whereas really, if this is something that's brewed in our country for 400 plus some years, you're going to have to take the time to talk about these things. And ain't no, oh, we built a cup tower. Now we've solved racial equality. Kumbaya, my Lord. No, it's not going to happen like that. And I think when you do that, what you really do is push away the feelings of Black folks and people of color. Because what you did is you've compartmentalized their emotions and said, well, they're fine. They'll be okay.
Right.
And if you consistently do that, when you marginalize somebody's feelings and disenfranchise somebody's emotions, they're not going to be a part of any team because they're not going to give you their whole heart. They're not interested in it. Because I have to keep myself for myself. If you don't care about me, why am I giving all to my job? That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go ahead, Camille.
I have a question. I want to talk about biases because it's a word that is thrown around in corporate America, and everybody has unconscious bias training, and people are hiring diversity and inclusion directors and chief diversity and inclusion officers left and right these days, right? And everybody's probably, and the majority of them are just there to paint a picture, to follow up to the Instagram post after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and things like that. But it's like, I want to hear from an educator's perspective, how after years of people not being educated about the history of diverse people in America, how do how should companies approach exposing and kind of rooting out biases that affect people in the workplace? From an
Great
educator's
question.
perspective. So,
Great question. I'll call it the 3-bite of the apple rule. You ready?
Ready.
Hey, you come into the room with your own biases. I get it. I understand it. I have mine as well. But if your biases are infringing on someone's progression in this company or making for a very uncomfortable work environment, we're going to have to terminate you. Here's the first bite of the apple. We have diversity and inclusion training, and we do it consistently. We should therefore see within a year your practices being put in place where you understand what this means. Okay, you missed on the first bite of the apple. Now we're going to do this again. All right, what we notice what's happened now is that you've missed on the second bite of the apple. That's unfortunate. Now we're going to have to put you on a performance improvement plan because we need you to get this. And we understand that where you were brought up, you didn't understand this, okay? So we try to open up your heart. Now we're going to open up your pockets. Now we've done the third time. You don't understand. We've had our performance review. It's been fun. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you. But you have to do it with that sincerity, because what that does now, it protects everybody involved. It protects Black folks, white folks, everybody folks. Because now you're saying we won't tolerate any type of biases in our workplace. And if you do so, you have to leave. And you cannot sue us because we gave you a chance. We brought in expert 1, we brought in expert 2, we talked to you. It was part of your performance review. See, I think that's the other thing too. Biases have to be a part of your performance review.
Right.
Like if you're a manager, and this is just me, I may be wrong. I may be wrong, but I would actually, as a higher up, let me see the resumes of the people you interviewed for this position. They all look the same. Why?
Yep.
Can I see the entire pool? This person looks qualified. This person looks qualified. Why wasn't this person brought in? This is strike 1. I'm very disappointed. Like what you do in your personal life, hey, Confederate flag, you can have happy birthday, Robert E. Lee could be your thing. But when we talking about the money and how we navigate around people of color, if you can't do it, can't do it. Because I say this all the time, and this is very uncomfortable talk for Black folks. Don't believe that the people of Montgomery all of a sudden said, you know what? We're treating Black people wrong. What you should believe is that they said 95% of our ridership is Black folks, and they ain't ridden this bus in over 200 plus some days. We're making massive layoffs, and we're getting ready to go bankrupt as a city behind Black folks riding the bus. That's an honest conversation.
I mean, I so agree with that. Like we were talking before we started the live, action is necessary. So like doing the auditing of records of our professionals that do hiring, that do offers, and really monitoring that's a great idea, including diversity and inclusion and bias training in performance management, and that the way we manage talent, that's a great idea. You know, there's our mom, we come from Southern roots from our mom, and you know, it's this term that they use or phrase, you know, you don't know fat meat is greasy. So you got to show them like we're willing to take action if you don't do right. By the policies and procedures that we lay out. You really got to show action. Like I was saying before we came on, like we have a handbook, we have policies and procedures. Some people, there's a population of people that don't get it until an action is done. So if we say, don't steal computers, and they're like, okay, whatever, don't steal computers. And they literally see someone steal a computer and that person gets fired. Oh, now they believe it.
Right.
So that's the same thing that has to happen with diversity and inclusion efforts. Some people have to see the action of, oh, they serious. They actually gonna do something about this.
I'll tell you this one horrible. Well, this is when I was being, I was trying to teach my kids the benefit or the importance of deadlines, and I gave my kids basically 3 months to do a project. I said, your project is due in this building at 8:10 a.m. At 8:11, I will not take your project. It is 3 F's, period. I said, do not be the example. I'm praying this over you. In fact, children, close your eyes. Heavenly Father, please thank you so much for allowing us to be here for everyone in the world. Please allow these children to turn their projects in time, and don't let none of these children be an example. Amen. They all went, amen. And I went, all right, cool. So sure enough, it's the day. I'm telling you this. This is no joke. Literally the day of the project, I showed them a project that I was building. I said, this is called, if you see this, you got 3 F's. And literally, I told the parents, I told everybody. Kids, there were kids there at 6 a.m. And I said, good, because I want you to understand something. If someone gives you $5 million and tells you to be there at 8 a.m., what time are you showing up? Kids are like, I'll be there at 8 a.m. I was like, and that's why you're a loser. That's why you lost. And they're like, but you said be there at 8 a.m. I said, I'm giving you $5 million. What time? Well, I would be there at 7. I said, now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. So literally, for all that to say is that kids showed up at 8:20, 8:30, and I pointed right to my project like that. And I wrote it like that Drake record. If you're seeing this, this means you failed.
You're too late.
You're too late. Mm-hmm. But I hate to say it, that's literally what we have to do. We have to have those biases, or basically, I hate to say it, it's going to take that one example, and then everybody's going to get it.
Right.
Everybody's going to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mrs. Clarkson, hey, Kristen, said, we've had to do unconscious bias training at work, and I learned that issues go beyond diversity and inclusion. Absolutely. Absolutely, Kristen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when we talk about training, Giani, there's, people that learn different ways in various ways. I get that. But when we talk about training the workforce, what are some tenets of Black history that when we talk about our history that we absolutely must talk about? Like, what are some subjects and topics that people should include? Like, is it systematic racism? Is it the school to prison pipeline? Like, what are some topics that you would suggest that people talk about?
Ready? Here it goes.
Yeah.
We have to stop teaching slavery from the point of view Abraham Lincoln had an idea. That's really terrible.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it implies that Black folks were not interested in being free until a president was elected and went, yeah, we are working for free and getting abused up in here. No. What we need to teach is slave rebellion. And I have been a huge fan of teaching slave rebellions forever and a day. In fact, I teach them. And literally, whenever I've gotten evaluated by master educators, they go, well, that's not a part of curriculum. I go, well, yes, it is. Because you asked me inside the curriculum to discuss the importance and the issues in regard to slavery. So I will be talking about the Stonewall Rebellion. I will be talking about the New York City conspiracy. I will be talking about Gabriel's Rebellion. Well, I'm not familiar with those, and you're the problem. You're the problem.
Just like that.
Go away. You're the problem. Go get out of my classroom.
Absolutely.
You can either do two things now. You can sit and learn or go away. So that's one. The second thing is that, and I'm going to say this, we have to stop criminalizing and allowing some white folks to criminalize the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party is responsible for so many amazing government programs that we don't give them credit for. One, they are the founders of Head Start. Two,
I remember that.
The 504 plan, which allows our handy-capable citizens to be able to receive a fair and equitable education. When they had a protest in San Francisco and did not have the proper medicine and everything else, if it was not for the Black Panther Party going out of their way to basically tell the police, you better get off of them or we're going to turn this out on national TV. Nina and my friends are going to speak to you on national TV. If it wasn't for the Black Panther Party, who was providing medicine and food to our handicapped citizens that were protesting, the 504 plan would not exist in modern day schools. We have to stop criminalizing them and making them the angry Black folks. They were community organizers that fully understood everything that's wrong with the world. In fact, even when we do this, right? Sickle cell, right? Sickle cell anemia. The Black Panther Party was the first to realize, hey, this is affecting Black folks, and we need to put things in place to make sure they're good. This program was so successful that President Richard Nixon went out of his way to basically recreate the same program and then charge white folks for it. Whenever y'all are ready. Right? Whenever y'all ready. These are the things that we have to teach our children, because what happens is that we start seeing a disconnect. And last but not least, and I'm going to say this again and again till common sense wins, we have to put a bigger concentration on the real heroes of the civil rights movement, who are Black women. Too many times we think it's Martin and Malcolm, but without a Fannie Lou Hamer, without a Diane Nash, and if we really want to be a little bit more careful about how we analyze Rosa Parks, we only know Rosa Parks as the woman that was on the bus.
Right.
Let's talk about Rosa Parks, the lawyer that represented a Black woman who was brutally raped and went to the heart of the South to make sure that, hey, she received a fair and equitable trial. This is when we're doing some real teaching. This is when we understand what's going on. So, we got to do better by our children of color, and I think we can do it. But we have to, if we're not getting it from our teachers, right? If we're not getting it from our teachers, then what we need to do is sit our children down and go, and this is what you're going to learn.
Right.
Period.
Just like all the things you just listed, right? Probably more than half of Americans, Black included, don't know this information, Giani. They don't know. And so basically, I mean, if you don't know this information, and I do agree with you as far as the Black Panther Party, because that's when you get the angry Black people or whatever. And it's so hard for Black men and especially Black women. We talk about it all the time because I'm a Black woman in corporate America. Carla's a Black woman in corporate America. Black women have had to write books about this, how to get your men to hearts, and, how to gain your seat, operate and gain your seat at the table and influence or whatever, because look at me, I'm smiling now. What if I walk through the hallway and I'm just like this? Am I angry? So the whole criminalization and the assignment of angry Black people, that still is found. It lingers, and it goes through corporate America to this day. Some Black woman is probably at home crying right now, or at a bar, or outside on the patio drinking, because of the microaggressions, because she's getting paid less than her white counterpart, because she was just pulled to the side and said she seemed angry in a meeting today because she didn't have much to say. All of people don't understand that history, it's still, and the lack of knowledge thereof, it still affects us in the workplace. Yeah. So for people not to know half of what you just said, that's problematic.
Yes, very.
Because if you don't know your story, then someone else writes it for you. Absolutely. And that's why I've been really big about teaching Black history this way. And it's like, if you don't know the narrator of your story, they'll write anything. Hell, the word story is inside of history. And if the victors get to tell the story, and who you and therefore it's what you believe, right? Like, I'll use something very, very silly, but just go along with it. Sit along, my children, and you shall hear the midnight ride of Paul. Paul Revere, right?
Yep.
We know the story, right?
Right.
Paul Revere had one ride. Who was the GOAT? Sybil Ludington. Sybil Ludington, who we never hear about, is a 16-year-old girl who was bold enough to ride between two cities and organize the Minutemen. We don't hear about her, but there's a poem about Paul Revere. Once again, marginalizing women. Better yet, the first person to die in the Revolutionary War on March 5th. Don't show off, Clarkson. I'll give you a year. March 5th, 17. Now there you go. Was a man by the name of Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was considered a very much so at that time a modern day self-made millionaire. He was on his way to try to get to his business. He was like, "What y'all are doing are extremely unfair," and he was shot and killed by a British soldier. A black man's blood started the Revolutionary War.
Yep,
whenever you all are ready, whenever you all collectively are ready. Like, and it's really sad. Like, a lot of people be like, "What? I didn't know that." But if you don't know it because it's not taught to you, we just like literally Crispus Attucks kind of just showed up, but we don't really compartmentalize that the fact that the blood of a black man started the Revolutionary War. Because white folks was like, "Yo, my man, did you just shoot Crispus?" Nobody's, bro, Crispus is cool. Now people jumped out the window. We are so much the page turners, the authors, the composers of American history. And it's peculiar how much so the history books ignore our brilliance.
Wow.
Ignore. Well, Ray says it's exhausting and violent that they expect us to suppress ourselves and entertain them like we aren't just as capable of doing the work we were hired to do.
Absolutely facts. 100%
facts. Right. Okay. Yes. I mean, yeah. I had a question going back to training and educating people.
Sure.
What's the best way to teach people that are at this great a deficit in knowledge? How do you do that?
This is the thing. You can't drown horses. As much as you want to, you just can't drown them. If the horse wants to drink the water, the horse will drink the water. You can't drown them. It's really a desire of the heart to want to learn and know more. Period. You can't say, "Well, I want to teach you." That person has to say, "I want to learn." Like, that's where knowledge and growth starts and begins and ends. Because you will find yourself consistently banging your head against the wall if you're trying to tell somebody, "Let me teach you," and they say, "I don't care." Like, literally, that's what's happening. The goal is to find people that say, "You know what? I've done something. I've lived a certain way. There's a problem. I'm Scooby and Shaggy. I'm not Mr. Magoo." And that's when we talk about having white allies. It's because those white allies understand, you know what? I'm wrong. I've really been misleading something, and I need to get this right. Because, we throw this statement out all the time out from, beloved Martin Luther King, which is an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. But do you believe that? Until you really believe that in your heart, I could teach you the world, but if you don't want to learn it, it doesn't matter.
And I guess that's where we come in with disciplinary action for those people that don't care.
Like I tell you, people don't care. Like, literally, it's like Starbucks. Starbucks is a perfect example of, "Oh, no, we've gotten this wrong." Starbucks was like, "Don't you be wearing no Black Lives Matter stuff up in our stores, employees." And that one black person or them people of color was like, "If you do this, we're dead. Hey, y'all, whatever, Black Lives Matter." It changed that quickly. And they realized, "I want to mess up my money."
Right.
And look, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I don't care if it's disingenuous, but what you're going to do is treat me with respect. Go in your little hole of the world, but when we're talking about passing the money, treat me with respect.
Right. That's just so disappointing that we are, like Carla mentioned, we are in corporate America and work period. We are, and you mentioned this before the live, Giani, we are such a deficit with information, and the people that are managing and running companies and managing people is just another form of oppression that they don't want to know and understand that the people that they manage. I can't, and so I would love to hear your opinion on, I mean, I know what Carla and I might say from an HR perspective. And of course, HR has to be, in so many words, kind of PC or kind of very misogynist and things like that. We can't be too radical, although outside of working with the Career Salon, we are radical. But
right.
How do you, I guess, how would you talk to an employee that has a manager or supervisor from an educator perspective and your approach? How would you talk to a manager or supervisor or leadership, whatever, approach the situation where a person is feeling that they're being oppressed or mistreated because their manager or supervisor just doesn't understand their perspective? And like Carla said, not just as an employee, like I'm not just here to put screws in a train. It's an employee from a holistic perspective, like my person, like me at work, putting screws in trains, as well as me outside of work when I walk 2 miles and catch the bus and a train to get here at work. You don't know me and you don't understand me. Therefore, you treat me as such with all those things. How would you teach an employee how to navigate that lack of knowledge?
I would immediately say to them, show me the receipts of where you felt that this happened to you. And the reason why I'm saying that is not because I don't believe you, but I'm going to need to have evidence to show the opposite party of what's going on. Like, it just can't be emotion. It has to be facts. And I just hate to say it, that's just who we are as a culture. We don't believe anything unless you have the receipts. And I think that if we have the receipts, then we can navigate better, this conversation and come to the table. So the day when Tuesday, when you said A, it translated like B. So now you understand why you got C as in a reaction. Like, I always operate in a world that nobody is a supervillain. Like, like clearly, and what I mean by that is that when we think about the Joker and all these people that are like super villains growing up, hey man, why are you doing that? Because I'm evil. That's what the hell I do. Like, that's my belief. My belief is that people aren't supervillains. There's a motivation of why people do the things that they do. And when you're able to understand that motivation, then therefore you can get to the root of the problem and get better communication. So like, for example, inside of my classroom, I used to have a student who fell asleep all the time. And this is when I was very young in my teaching career. And I used to give her detention. And I kept giving her detention. And finally I said, you're answering this problem wrong. And one day I said, hey, why do you fall asleep in my class? And she said, your class is my favorite class. Really? You always sleep. How, Sway? Her older sister had recently given birth to a baby. Her younger sister is a single mother. She's up at 5 a.m., helping her sister feed the baby, doing all of these various things. So when she shows up in my classroom, she's been up 3 hours. So I'm up here teaching and playing music and giving her the show, and she's asleep, and I'm giving her detention. I'm not helping her situation. She's not a supervillain. I didn't understand. I just didn't understand. And that's really what, and so when I said, you know what? So literally what I did was, and she's prayerfully love it. She's graduating this year from Texas Southern.
Oh, awesome.
Right? And she always says, and she gave me a birthday card this year. She said, Mr. Clarkson, thank you allowing me to sleep so I could dream.
Aww.
And I was like, yo, I could have really missed that. I could have missed that moment if I decided to criminalize her and like make this really, really bad. So like overall, what I'm learning is that inside of like diversity and inclusion, which goes back to what I said earlier, is that we have to be very careful about who are the real villains and who we really need to be like, yo, you just, I need some more information to make sure that you understand.
Right.
And that's the difference between the two.
When we were talking earlier about this topic, Miseducation of Corporate America, and me and Camille were discussing the ways that lack of knowledge shows up in the workplace.
Right.
Some of them may be school discrimination. I don't know whether people know it or not, but sometimes people do look at the university you went to or the college you went to and like
they do.
Ooh,
I've been recruiting for 15 years.
Oh, you didn't go to UT or you didn't go to U of M or you didn't, then I just can't with you. I can't hire you. So school discrimination, compensation gaps. When people are like assigning compensation to an offer letter, let's just offer her 80. That's like a little bit above the minimum, and it's probably more than her and her family has ever made. Really?
Rude.
Okay.
Rude.
Hair discrimination.
Hair discrimination is real.
It's a real thing. Rhea said grace and empathy matter. Absolutely, Rhea.
Yeah, like but let me be careful about this too. Like I'm not kumbaya in this moment. Like, okay, there should be some grace and empathy, but patience, the reward for patience is progress. If there's no progress, you've lost my patience. And I think that's where it should be that way as well too. So when we talk about sisters getting discriminated with hair and everything else, and like, I have one of the most vicious pen collections of all time.
Yes.
Of Black folk pens. And I am
reclaiming my time. Oh, is one of them.
In fact, one of my new favorite pens that it's over the distance it's Muhammad Ali punching. Like, hey, I am who I am. And I'm very blatant in being transparent in that. I don't think that Black folks should have to turn down the volume on a culture that America tries to profit off of.
What? You better say that again, Giani, because it's the truth.
I don't
Seriously, it is.
I refuse to, as a Black man or as a Black folk in this country, turn down the volume on my culture when America tries to pay for it. Like, here's the thing. Like, you cannot have my rhythm and then not accept my blues.
Right.
That's highly unacceptable.
Yeah.
So if you get me in the workplace, I want you to be very clear who I am. Like, I can be Frankie Beverly and Mays or NWA. You choose. I could be You Make Me Happy or Police. Either way, I will always be fine. But you decide you decide what song you're going to hear today.
Yeah.
You're going to hear Golden Time of Day? Or Police. Either way.
Right. and you're so right. It's Carla and I were just, the Crown Act was passed in California to prevent discrimination for Black people with their hair, braids, locks,
right.
All those things. Why did we have to have that passed? And they're working to get it passed in other states as well. But why do we have to have that passed when the Kardashians can walk down the street and get paid $50,000 for doing a post on Instagram and have cornrows? Is somebody telling me?
When I saw Khloe Kardashian, I thought it was a light-skinned black woman. I was so confused. But I'm gonna tell you where we lost it at. Ready? We have sold America as a melting pot.
Yeah.
That we've sold it. Well, if you the reason what makes us great is we're a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not. We're a gumbo. But see, cultures don't melt. The shrimp, the okra, the sausage, the green pepper, the garlic, the onions, they all do their own thing, but it all tastes great. If you're telling me that I have to melt myself to fit into a mold, then you know what? You don't really understand. The building blocks of this country. Mm-hmm. You don't, because you want to pour me into a mold and make me one way. I'm not one way. Mm-hmm. So when we say that women should wear their hair like this and men should wear their hair like this and you need to be this religion, you've completely disregarded the founding story of this country. Now, mind you, the founding of this story of this country does not include African Americans or any person of color or gender or sexual preference. But if you're saying this is the lay of the land, then I want the lay of the land.
Right.
That's literally what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's like literally when we break down why is there so much racial tension in America, it's because people of color, people that are gay, immigrants are asking for the special of the day. And you keep telling us we're out of the special of the day, but we see everyone else ordering the special. Well, they got the special. They got the special. I want the special.
On that note, that's a that's a mic drop. I mean, it's a good. We're at our time, and I'm like, wow, Giani, you're right. You are right.
I don't have anything else to say.
Me either, because the goal of this conversation, Giani, and the reason why we had you, because you put things in a different perspective that, we could have had a D&I expert, or somebody that does diversity and inclusion or, anything like that. We could have had a person. We have a network. We could have but I think having an educator on to talk about the lack in knowledge in corporate America was very helpful. And that's the whole goal of the Career Salon, is to educate and to look at things from a different perspective. And that's our whole goal, is to educate people. So maybe some of the things that you mentioned, people are like, oh, I need to go find out about that. I need to, even, people of color, Black people watching, the Happy Hour, they will, oh, Giani talked about this. And you guys, if you want, Giani does videos all the time. He does podcasts all the time. He's always on somebody's show. He's always
Don't do that.
Yes.
He's like, he's a sought after speaker. And he's always educating people. And that's why we really, wanted to have you on tonight to discuss this topic. And you've been so helpful.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
and Camille
much.
too, like you said before, it's not only important for the people that are not of color to learn this information. It's important for all of us to know this history, including Black people. Do yourself a favor and learn your history, because when we don't know, we'll fall for the okie doke. We'll try to fit in with the mold of what we'll try to fit in with the mold of what we think corporate America wants us to look like, what corporate America thinks we think they want us to speak like and dress like, and and so we'll fall for that because we don't know our own history. We don't know about our own culture. We don't get outside the box and read books and watch videos. I mean, for this to be the age of technology and to have access to everything at the tip of our fingers, we are so not taking advantage of that. So I would impress upon our whole culture, all races, to read more. listen to audiobooks. I know some people don't consider listen to audiobooks reading books, but I mean, if that's what you can do, that's what you can do. But do that. So we want to thank you guys, our audience, for hanging with us on this happy hour live.
I'll be back next week. I'm not coming again.
He might.
He's coming back to the red table. Coming back to the red table. But we want to thank Giani Clarkson. Thank you.
Whenever Giani.
Whenever we call him, he's like, I don't care what it is. Yep. And we can't thank you enough for doing that, helping us on our platform. Our only goal is to educate and have these meaningful discussions about different topics we don't think people are talking about enough. And so we want to thank our audience. We want you to share, like, follow us, start a watch party with this video so your friends and family members on your Facebook can see this, so we can get these discussions going. You can have little mini discussions on the side. So we want to thank you again, and we want you all to have a great weekend.
Yes, it's Friday. Turn up.
Bye.
Bye.